Good afternoon, and a very, very huge and warm welcome from Team Learning Matters to all of you who's joined us today on this Saturday afternoon. Welcome to the Star Educator Awards Gala 2020. It is going to be an evening filled with lots of inspiration. We have two wonderful guest speakers, very distinguished educationists in their own rights and in their own domains of education, who have contributed to the field of education for years and years. So we have much to learn from them and much to be inspired by them. We will also be very inspired by and learn from the 9 winners of the Star Educator Awards. This is the first year that Learning Matters has instituted the Star Educator Awards. It is our humble attempt to throw light on remarkable educators around the country who are going above and beyond, inspiring their students, inspiring their colleagues, inspiring the whole school, maybe their even parents to reach higher, to do better. These are educators who truly recognize the inner potential of their students and go out of their way to bring that potential out and to make the students reach heights that they might never have dreamed they could. So as far as the agenda of the session, we will first start off with a wonderful session by our Dr. Rajagopal. Thank you so much for joining us. And as we all know, NEP is the hot topic that everyone is talking about these days. And people have so many questions about the NEP. So one thing that I wanted to quickly talk to you about is one big question that is uppermost on everyone's mind is the NEP's one of their recommendations that they've come in saying teaching in the mother tongue up to grade 5 and then teaching English grade 6 and beyond. This has proved to be a very, very, it's a lot of debate about this topic. And you are the perfect person to ask because you have worked so extensively in the English language itself, but also in bilingualism, multilingualism, role of mother tongue. What are your thoughts on this? And what would you say to people who are, people are either very worried saying if children don't learn English and start learning only at grade 6, then we're actually denying them many opportunities in later life and career. But at the same time, there are people who say, no, but we have to learn the mother tongue as well. So what are your thoughts on this? And I know this is a question many people have sent in. So could you please tell us a little bit about this?
That's very nice of them. Very good. Thank you very much, first of all. And welcome to all the listeners at the moment. You can't see me. There's some problem. Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, the new education policy 2020 is a very carefully thought out issue. It's a very carefully worked out plan, proposal. And so it has taken into consideration several factors. And one of them is schooling. The child has to be in the school. Now, children are not in the school for various other reasons. And hence, one of the first things that has been done in the new education policy is to start school education from the age of 3. Now, at 3, if the child enters the school and stays on for the next 3 years, for example, number one, the child gets the hang of a school. It gets the hang of education, an environment which is very different from the outside world, an environment which is very different from just home or whatever. Now, in this circumstance, the child feels, or it should feel, very comfortable in doing its everyday activities. And the language in which the child feels most comfortable is its own mother language. Now, the child picks up one quality one type of mother tongue at home, in the environment that is available at home and in its home environment. But the school environment provides another kind of controlled language use. Now, this controlled language use is something like, for example, enabling the child to pick up new skills, skills of operation. The child begins to use language to perform a number of typical tasks which are carried out in the school. Now, when the child does this in the mother tongue, the child is also unconsciously learning what we call certain very basic academic skills. This is very important to understand. A school, and we call it school bilingualism, not only provides a different kind of language for use, but it also trains the child's cognition, the child's mind, to think on what we basically call academic skills. These academic skills are very much different from the kind of language the child is exposed to at home. At home and in the environment, it's largely social skills. And therefore, in the new education policy, provision has been made to enable the child to learn its initial years in the school through the medium of mother tongue, so that when it learns through the medium of mother tongue up to the age of up to the age of 6, for example, the child has picked up a certain vocabulary, a certain sentence structure, a certain way of asking questions and answering questions. It has picked up several other behaviors which are typical of a school. And so the policy says that right up to age 6 and class 1, the child can comfortably function in the mother tongue. And as it functions there, the mother tongue that the child learns there will be very beneficial as it continues with its further education. So there will be no loss. In fact, there will be a lot of what we call cognitive gain in the child's learning, thanks to the exposure and practice through the mother tongue, exposure to and practice through the mother tongue.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. And I hope that that has helped, alleviate the fears of many educators and teachers who, don't know what to think about that particular recommendation, and they think that teaching in the mother tongue will, bring down, proficiency in English. So it's very reassuring to hear your response to that. Thank you so much for that. And I just want, before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to remind everyone to please keep sending your questions in for Dr. Rajagopal. All the questions that you have about the NEP, please send them in on the question window and we will get to it one by one. Right now, what I'm doing is there were a lot of people who had already prior sent in a lot of questions to us through the registration form. So what we have done is we've worked out, looked at those questions and looked at the ones that were frequently asked, because those are uppermost in many people's minds. So we will first work through those, at least some of the top 5 or 6 questions, and then we'll throw it open to the audience.
I think. Fine.
Great.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good.
So the next question is, many people want to know, the NEP 2020 puts forward many policy changes and recommendations when it comes to teachers and teacher education. It could be almost a 360-degree turn for teachers from the traditional methodology and what they're used to. So what steps are being taken to make our teachers able to handle this change, and what can teachers themselves do to make the new NEP a success story in transforming India's education? If you could please elaborate on these points.
Yeah. Now, that's a very important aspect of NEP.
Yes.
We know that nothing can be done without the active participation of the teacher.
Right.
Active participation of the teacher in any activity will depend on the teacher's own preparation, training, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Now, as you said, yes, there is a 360-degree change here, which means that preparing the teacher for this type of teaching is a very difficult task, and it will be undertaken very soon. Now, what do we mean by it? We mean that, for example, all teachers will now have to start thinking of a different teaching methodology.
Right.
It will no longer be a teacher centered, one direction activity. The new education policy proposes that hereafter the classroom shall shift its focus onto the learner, and the teachers will have to create an atmosphere in the classroom where there is very active learner participation.
Okay.
Now, this active learner participation will mean that there will have to be a lot of questioning and answering in the classroom, opportunities for discussion, opportunities for learner involvement. There will be what is called a critical discourse, which means that there will be plenty of discussion on a certain topic, focusing on the learner's communication skills, and so on and so forth. Now, the point here is that saying all these things is very good, very well. They sound well. But are the teachers ready
Yeah.
with all those techniques?
Exactly.
How to organize these things?
Correct.
And so the NEP has planned a very elaborate training mechanism. There is going to be several agencies which will be working on training the teachers. For example, we have the new policy proposes that there will be the National Council for Teacher Education,
Mm-hmm.
which will be the overseeing body of teacher education in the country.
Yeah.
This is being slightly modified and will be called a professional standard setting body.
Okay.
Now, this professional standard setting body is going to work in collaboration with NCRT, SCRT, and the other bodies,
Okay.
all of who will get into teacher education, teacher training programs.
Okay.
Now, there will be special education programs also for all the teachers. All teachers must have a B.Ed degree. They will be given opportunities to do a B.Ed. And for all those who have done B.Ed, all teachers all over the country will undergo a 50-hour orientation program every year.
Okay.
This will be made obligatory and compulsory for everybody.
Okay.
Now, all the curriculum for all these training programs will be drawn up by the National Council for Teacher Education, the NCRT, and then the new proposal which is going to come up in 2021. So the manner in which the teacher education program is going to come up will be available to us by 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. So there will be a lot of training for the teachers.
Right.
Because the textbooks are all going to change, the exercise materials will change, and therefore the suggestion for classroom teaching will change. If those are the changes, the teachers have to be prepared for all these things. And so there will be a massive teacher training program all over the country very soon.
Exactly. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
very reassuring to know that there are several steps being planned by NEP to set this into motion and to do it in a stepwise manner to equip the teacher. So that's very good to know. Another question goes, NCERT has confirmed that the curriculum change can happen only by 2023. So
Yeah.
therefore the period until 2023 could be considered as a golden period to change the attitude of the facilitators and learners towards learning. So please share your best practices in how to best bring about this attitude change.
Yeah. Now the proposal has come out in 2020. Now, once the proposal has come up, it is in its raw form.
Correct.
People have to absorb this.
Right.
And at several points where this is going to become operative, there will have to be suitable field trials.
Okay.
Now, this is going to be undertaken. There will be tryouts, there will be field trials, there will be plenty of consultation, and there will be also reframing of the effective practices. Now, the ground level practices have not yet been drawn up totally. A concept has been drawn up. Now, how exactly this gets implemented will need a lot of field trials.
Right.
And as you said, this is a golden period of tryout.
Correct.
And so now, starting now, that is from the coming academic year, there will be a number of experimentations at the field level. For example, see, the new education policy proposes implementation of um, certain activities for the child which go beyond the school curriculum.
Yes.
There is a proposal, for example, to bring in artisans into the school,
Oh, right.
to bring in technical experts into the school. Now, you see, these are all very important because vocationalization is going to take place. But how do we bring them in? How do these people participate? How do we draw up a curriculum? How do we draw up a kind of a feedback system for them? How do we do all these things?
Correct.
Now, for that purpose, over the next 2 years, between 2021, 21, 22, there will be a lot of field trials, there will be a lot of testing, there will be a lot of other things that are going to happen, and therefore we will be ready to implement it, the policy, by 2023 certainly.
Okay.
That is the projected, you know, that's the projection of the policy itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
That's very good to know. There are some follow-up questions on the mother tongue issue, so I just want to bring them up quickly while while we are kind of still on that topic. Saili wants to know: only the teaching in mother tongue going to happen, or will books also be translated into the regional languages? As teachers, how should we approach this? Is what Saili wants to know.
Okay. Siley, you should know that the initial stages of teaching, right up to probably class 1 level, will all be in the mother tongue, which means it will be almost monolingual, but the focus will also be on training the children to identify things in the other language also. Say, for example, English. Now, your question was related to the text materials. The text materials for the child when the child starts reading, say for example at class 1 level, will be in English, but there will be plenty of support materials for the teacher in 2 languages, 3 languages. In other words, for the teacher, there's plenty of information which will be shared with the teacher in the bilingual or even the trilingual format. But as far as the child is concerned, since the child has already learned quite a few things, say, for example, recognition, talking, identification of a few objects, talking small sentences, communicating, and so on and so forth, not just in the mother tongue, but also in the other tongue in the early stages, right up to class 1, up to age 6, the child will now be shifted onto the English textbooks, for example, and the teacher will know how to introduce the English textbook using 2 languages. The child will listen wherever it needs clarification in the mother tongue, but it will perform many of its tasks in the other language.
Great.
So there will be a balance.
There will be a balance. Okay. Thank you so much. And Saili, I hope that answered your question. Chaya has a question for you. She says, how will children of transferable parents cope up with this policy?
Yeah.
Will all subjects be taught in the mother tongue, and until what grade?
No, you see, the transferability uh, from first standard onwards, that is from age 6 onwards, will not be a problem, because for the child or the parent who is transferred, and if you're transferred from here to one of those examples, maybe Maharashtra or even Odisha, um, the classes will go on in English, but for the child, for the sake of the child, if the child needs any support and help for understanding, the textbook will also be available in the local language.
Okay.
So, up to 5 years, you see, when the child is still below 6 years, if there is a transfer, the child will have to will shift over to the other language. So I hope there won't be any transfers until age 6, but not to worry, because from age 6 onwards, that's from first standard onwards, the child will be able to study either in the local language if the child knows the local language, or will be able to study in English if the child is prepared to learn for English. So do not have to worry. So, though this can be handled.
Okay. And Valli has a follow up question. She says,
Hmm.
I just wanted to know the mother tongue may be actually different from that of the state language for someone
Hmm.
who is living
Hmm.
in a state that is not their
Hmm.
home state,
Hmm.
or
Hmm. Hmm.
the state of their
Hmm.
mother tongue, so to say.
Hmm.
How will the system deal with this challenge? How
Yeah,
prepared will the teacher be if he or she himself is not a localite?
right.
Okay.
Now, yeah, as far as possible, the policy endorses a situation where if there is a child whose mother language is not the state language, is not the majority language, is not the dominant language surrounding it, and so on, a teacher who knows the child's mother tongue, mother language, home language, will be made available.
Mhm.
You see, in fact, one of the teacher policies, one of the policies of appointment of teachers is that a person who knows the local language or the local languages will get preference in appointment in the school which is nearest to the teacher and where the child attends, so that the child will feel very comfortable with that teacher. And let's be very clear. The policy also states that if there are going to be quite a few children in that school, and they will all be treated as children who will be taught in their language, in their mother language, which may not be the state language, which may not be the language in which the others are learning. So you see, the idea is also to create opportunities for employment.
Mhm.
And in this creating of opportunities for employment, knowing different languages,
Mhm.
knowing the local language, knowing the local languages will be an advantage to the appointee teacher. So teachers will have the benefit of their knowledge of the local language and their ability to teach whatever subjects it is. You asked about mathematics, science, and so on. If the teacher is also qualified in some of those subjects and so on, all that will be credited. And so the teacher's ability in teaching all those other subjects also in the child's local language will be an added advantage to the teacher. And so there will be no dearth of opportunities for teachers, so for children, for teachers as well as for children.
Great.
So nothing to fear there. Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And Lopamutra wants to know what are some of the major assessment related guidelines given?
Now, you know, when the focus of attention in classroom teaching is primarily on developing some of these other skills, and mind you, when the teacher's classroom is no longer rote learning based. It's not based on, a kind of a reflection on what is given in the textbook.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, the nature of assessment is bound to change.
Okay.
In other words, comprehension questions will no longer be just text based alone. If you think of 6 questions, maybe one question or 2 questions might be text based, but the rest of it will move away from text based knowledge, and it will encourage the children to come up with interpretation. Now, this also has another advantage in the sense that a teacher can also construct questions depending on what she has taught
Right.
in that particular geographical area. So, questions that require interpretation, analysis, reinventing the data will dominate the nature of question papers. This is number one.
Okay.
Number two, most of the other questions will expect the child to respond to objective type questions rather than the subjective type questions.
Right.
In other words, the teacher's own training programs will also train them to ask objective type oral questions and include objective type written questions also. So, this will be part of their training, and hence the nature of the assessment itself will no longer be just text based rote learning, and that kind of a vomiting will no longer take place,
Okay.
which also discourages probably guides,
Right. Right.
and many of these things. Okay.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. So I hope that answered your question. And Neeraj wants to know. So, like I said earlier, the mother tongue issue seems to be the hot button issue here, which everyone is either worried about or concerned about. So Neeraj
Mm.
asks, how do we convince people who are very loudly against the mother tongue based education and are very pro English medium? How do we convince them that mother tongue isn't just a better way, but always does justice to communities everywhere? So, Dr. Rajagopal, you have so much experience in
Mm.
multilingualism and, in fact, in using the mother tongue as an effective aid to teach English, correct?
Mm.
So,
Yes,
no better person
you're
to
right.
answer this particular question than you. So, what
Yeah.
can you tell us, and what can you tell Neeraj that he can use to convince all the
Okay.
detractors?
Okay. Neeraj, here are a few things you and all the other teachers should know. What does language learning mean? Language learning means picking up not just words, not just sentence types, not just using proper grammar, not just coming up with grammatically appropriate sentences, not just answering appropriate questions and so on, but basically, language learning is acquiring data. And this data helps you organize your language related skills. Now, when we talk of language related skills, we mean that learning language, learning any language, will enable you to learn how to listen, how to ask a question, how to respond to a question, how to read, write, and so on and so forth. And if somebody asks you, do you know where this particular thing is? You're able to give it directions, for example. You're able to carry on communication. In other words, a whole gamut of skills are learned when you learn a language. And this is what happens when you learn your mother tongue also. Now, learning mother tongue is no exception to this at all. Now, what happens is that we say that languages, all languages, share two things amongst them. Number one, there is what we may call a deeper level strata, a deeper level, and there is a surface level. Now, all languages, by and large, they have sounds, they have words, They have sentences, they have sentence types, they have constructions, they have questions on, and all languages have this. That is at the deeper level. So basically, a child, when the child asks a question and wants to ask a question, formulating the question is one system which has already gone into the child's own cognition, into one's own psyche. Now, the child therefore knows how to ask a question and who, how, mood of the person, what kind of an attitude you want to show, etc., etc., etc. And so, in other words, learning a language has already taught the child an underlying system. And this is the same system which exists in all languages. What is the difference? The difference is only at the surface level. For example, if you take your mother language and English, the difference in English is that English has its sounds, its words, its own grammar, and things like this. A child who knows the mother language well will have, once it has mastered the mother tongue, and which happens by the time the child is 5, the child knows its mother tongue pretty well. Once it has mastered the mother tongue, let me tell you, have no doubt about the child's capacity to transfer all those learned skills onto the new language. And so you can safely tell the teachers that although your child knows everything in the mother tongue, the child knows how to speak in English. At the initial stages, the child may not know how to construct a complete grammatically correct sentence, but the child will know that, madam, tomorrow my home festival, so I not come. So the concept is complete. And this is something that the child has learned in the mother tongue. And in the mother tongue, the child is able to organize it in a sentence. But in the target language like English, it may not be able to do it the first time. But over years, and it's not even years, it's over months, the child will pick up the target language, that is English. So the parents need not have any worry. All of us did not grow up in English. All of us picked up our English. And how we picked up and how well we picked up, we know. And so do not have any worry. You can tell the parents that they can rest assured that the child will learn everything in English simply because it has already learned whatever it is supposed to learn in the mother tongue. And therefore, the mother tongue is so rich, has given so much of knowledge, so much of information, and so much of capacity that the child will transfer all that knowledge, information, capacity onto the learning of English successfully and within no time.
Wonderful. I think that was wonderfully expressed, and I hope Neeraj and everyone else who is, who often faces questions about this. I hope you've received enough and more evidence to that you can use in your debates now. Absolutely, Dr. Rajagopal. I think what you said is perfectly correct, and anyone who's even worked a little bit with languages or studied languages or done any research will agree with you and say that you are absolutely correct. So that's
Thanks,
really great to know.
Right.
Preeta wants to know, is there a provision in the NEP for learning one's own mother tongue, irrespective of the state one resides in addition to the regional language? So it's a different twist on the same question.
That's a very good. It's a very good question.
Yes.
Learning one's own mother tongue in a geographical location which is not one's own state, where that particular language is available, the policy has not thought about that.
Not thought about that, right?
Not yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's, I'm sure there's quite enough to think about. So,
oh yes, indeed,
without
indeed.
that, yeah.
Yeah. That's why I told you about, you see, all the field trials and so on and so forth. You see, all these questions are going to come up there,
Yes.
and that's how the policy will change. No problem.
Yes. So Preeta, you're thinking way ahead of the NEP. So we wish we had an answer, but
but keep the thinking up.
Keep the thinking up. Exactly. We must keep thinking. That's right, Dr. Rajagopal.
That's very fine.
Yes. Another question that came in through the registration form is a lot of people wanted to know, how will the government ensure effective implementation of the NEP when we already are reeling from an acute lack of well-qualified and well-paid teachers, especially in Tier 3 and Tier 4 India? and
Now,
especially in primary education. So a lot of
oh
people are
yeah.
concerned about this.
Mhm. Now, there is when you think of a policy, one of those thoughts that goes into the policy is to have what we call a regulatory mechanism. Now, one of the strengths of this policy is its focus on the regulatory mechanism. When you think of a regulatory mechanism, you think of it in two ways. One is where you think of what we may call a top down mechanism, and the other one is where we think of the bottom up mechanism. In the top down mechanism, in the policy, as it suggests, there is going to be a central advisory board on education, which is a part of the ministry. And this Central Advisory Board of Education is the final authority on deciding all the policy matters. Now, this Central Advisory Board is supported by a number of sub agencies. For example, there is the Directorate of School Education, which is a very important apex body. And then there is an eminent expert committee to govern all the policy decisions and their implementation. There is a very important Higher Education Council of India. Now, this is what is going to replace the UGC. So, in other words, there are such top level important committees, commissions, which will look after the policy implementation. At the bottom level, at the other end, for example, there are a number of schemes where, right from the school administration, which will be governed by the School Administration Council, which will take into consideration several schools into its hands. Then there is, of course, the good old diet, SCRT, and NCRT. Now, there is therefore a number of regulatory mechanisms. One of the questions that you asked in part of your question was, how do we go into tier 2 and tier 3 cities? That is where the focus is. Because, for example, if you want to implement many of these policies, then it has to be what we call incentivized. All those who opt to teach, who want to become teachers in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, all of them who think they have qualification but also they have an inclination to teach, they will be administered teacher eligibility tests. And this is from the National Testing Agency, which is pan-Indian agency. Now, these teacher eligibility tests are administered to all those who want to become teachers. Now, those who want to become teachers, before they take the test, will be given certain incentives, scholarships, to get ready for those tests. So, you see, in other words, in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, there will be plenty of encouragement for people to become teachers wherever there is a shortage. And everybody will be encouraged to become teachers. And progressively, they will be allowed to do their B.Ed or they do their other orientation programs and so on. But the job availability is made known to them, job opportunities are given to them. And so, mind you, the important thing here is that teacher transfers are no longer the way it used to be. It is no longer randomized, it is digitized. And therefore, every teacher applies. If he or she wants a transfer, will have to apply. And in the entire scheme, the transfer will be made available or will not be made available. Certainly, the transfer will not be imposed on the teacher. Therefore, you see, there will be plenty of scope for the tier 2 and tier 3 cities to encourage a number of youth to take up teaching as an interesting occupation. And there will be plenty of incentives to them because they will also be monitored and there will be regular scores for them and they will also be incentivized. So the entire teaching activity all over, hopefully, will not suffer from whatever lacunae that we used to see so far. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's really great to know. And there are a lot of people who are concerned about how will the government or the bodies that deal with the NEP implementation, how will they reach out to the remotest schools of India and ensure that the same skills are being acquired by the students and that education is being imparted with the same integrity as in other schools. Also, how can one monitor the effectiveness and promptness in teacher education?
Yeah. Now the entire operation is going to be monitored by the local diets. They are going to have a lot of responsibility now.
Right.
Now, more than responsibility, I will say accountability. So it will no longer be a vague thing because there will be lots of field activities, field officers, and these will be constantly monitoring even at the remotest point. Now, accountability means that because there will have to be periodic reports from every one of these agencies onto the diet, onto SCRT, and onto NCRT, and finally Central Advisory Board on Education. So it's a totally a kind of a tiered kind of operation where checks will be put in place. And mind you, any violation will mean disqualification either of the individual or of the institution itself. Supposing an institution is not doing what it's supposed to do, then the institution will face disqualification and closure. This has also been stated in the NEP. So there is enough the checks and balances, and therefore it will reach the whole. Number two, just a small little addition here for the teachers who are teaching in those remote areas. Number one, they will be assured local accommodation. They'll be given accommodation locally and comfortable accommodation. If for some reason that is not feasible, that's not possible, they'll be given additional incentives in the form of added house rent allowance so that they can stay in the nearest place of their choice and things. So you see, the policy has thought of many of these possibilities. And the idea is simply that we have to reach the remotest corners, including the tribals and so on and so forth. So, yes, there's sufficient thought which has gone into all those areas.
That's very reassuring and very good to know. I think on a similar vein, a lot of people want to know how will the NEP benefit people who live in remote areas of India with very little or no access to good, skilled and qualified teachers, or even decent school infrastructure.
Now, the NEP has said that most of these proposed changes should be in place by 2030. It has taken a 10-year period under its arms, and it expects all the changes to have been implemented in two phases, one by 2025 and the second by 2030. Now, the NEP says that, okay, if we start the whole program in 2023, by 2025, we will know where the problems are. Now, if we know the problems that are there by 2025, either the curriculum change itself will take place or additional repairs, whatever needs to be done, will be carried out so that by 2030, our children will have a fairly clear picture of what they want to have and what their choices are and how they would like to choose their own future, including the aspirations of the teachers and the teacher trainers and so on. So there is a 10-year period they have very safely taken in two phases.
Okay. I think that's good to know. So it looks like they really have given quite a bit of thought to the implementation of all of these different recommendations. And that's good to know. That's good to hear for everyone here. A lot of people had a question about teachers who work on ad hoc or part-time basis.
Yeah.
They say, what is the future of these teachers after the pandemic? What training do these teachers require to secure their position back into educational institutions with the regulation of NEP coming in, especially English teachers?
That's right. Um, well, pandemic was not anticipated by the policy. Okay, right. So it was not anticipated at all, and so all the issues related to that. But the policy only states that opportunities for teachers shall be made available as soon as the schools reopen. Not just schools, colleges also, in higher education also. And so ad hoc teachers and their regularization, the policy has not said anything about that. The policy can only say that, or it has said that, by and large, you see, opportunity shall be made available through the national eligibility tests. The national eligibility tests will be held at different levels as soon as the academic year opens, probably by about March 2021. Hopefully, that's my expectation, by which time all the teachers, all those ad hoc people, all of them can apply. And by and large, my understanding is that opportunities shall be made available to all those who apply, because the teachers are needed at the school level as well as at the higher level.
Great. Thank you, sir. Another question is the introduction of the NEP itself has created quite a buzz. And while it brings a lot of changes to the table, how does it address inequity in education? And when will the NEP's provisions, when will we start seeing the reality of implementation?
Yeah. Now, inequity in education, the NEP notes, is a major issue. Inequity, not just in terms of the right to education, not just that policy, of course, continues, but that apart, inequity in terms of not making available the education which the majority gets to some of these minorities. Minorities are of two kinds. And therefore, the education policy talks of what it calls equitable and inclusive education. A whole section is available on that. Now, in equitable and inclusive education, it's not just the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, the minority, the OBCs, and others who come under this umbrella, but it also says that hereafter, people with physical disabilities, people with minor disabilities, we can't talk of, higher level things like, for example, children with palsy, who suffer from palsy. We can't combine those children with these. But those who have physical disabilities or minor physical, problems and issues, what the Honorable Prime Minister refers to as the Divyang, and girl candidates, and the third gender, all of them shall be treated equally in the new education policy. All of them have equal status. All schools shall, the policy insists that all schools shall enable itself for the physically challenged children. So there'll have to be ramps. There'll have to be ramps inside the children, all inside the school also, so that those who are visually challenged, they can also be monitored. So opportunities will be given to all these kids, all the girls, all the third gender, all these learners across society shall be protected and shall be treated equal and shall be given treated shall be given equal opportunities in all the schools hereafter. Not just schools, colleges also it appears to that. So just remember equitable and inclusive education.
Wonderful. Wonderful to know that. A lot of people are asking if how will there be any what do you call it? They're asking who will ensure or how will it be ensured that implementation is in line with the policy as it is intended to be, because there is no mention of the RTE in the NEP, nor is there any legal framework that is backing the
No,
NEP to ensure a
not
smooth implementation. So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on this?
No, the as I told you, see, uh, when there are so many regulatory mechanisms built into the policy at every level, at every stage, whether it is school education or college education or technical education or other education, as I told you some time ago, when there are regulatory mechanisms, it is the job of those regulatory mechanisms to ensure implementation, and implementation should take place properly. Now, see, why should so many regulatory mechanisms be built in? Why should there be so many checks and so many committees to check at every level, whether at the school or at the college level? So, you see, all these agencies are meant to be doing their jobs. If the lower fellow doesn't do it, the higher fellow will take it up. And if the higher fellow and the next higher fellow, and so it goes on, the hierarchy will go on. And they will all be accountable. So, how do you ensure implementation to be uniform, and how do you ensure implementation should to be complete is one of those things that this policy has thought about very carefully, and therefore has created any number of these agencies, whether it is curriculum reform, whether it's teacher education, or whether it's going to be school administration, college administration, or technical administration, or whatever. In all these aspects, there are regulatory mechanisms. They will see to that it is implemented.
Great.
So beyond that, only time will tell us. Yeah.
Correct, correct. Just a quick time check and a reminder to our audience. We are on the very last leg in few minutes with Dr. Rajagopal. So while we have him with us, please make sure you get all your burning questions about the NEP answered. So that if there are any questions that are still in your mind, please do put them into the chat window or into the question window, and we'll make sure we broadcast those to him. So while people are thinking of questions, I'll ask one last one from my side, which came in again from all those who sent the questions prior.
Yeah.
How will NEP improve educational administration, as this is a major issue for elementary section?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, thank you very much. That's a very good question. Educational administration will require administrators. Now, administrators who are already administrators, and others who aspire to become administrators. Now, administration will mean several things, like, for example, not just leadership qualities, it also requires knowledge and information about accounting and so on. It will also require information about curriculum implementation, and it will also require information about admissions and parent teacher meetings and other things and so on. So its administration is a totally different set of skills. Now, the policy has incentivized administration also by doing two things. One, every administrator every year will have to compulsory, like the teachers, compulsorily attend a 50-hour training program on leadership and all these other things that we talked about. This is obligatory again for all the headmasters and administrators in all the schools, including the primary level. Number two, senior teachers who aspire to become headmasters, or who are likely to become, for whatever it is, will also be encouraged to do all these things. That is, attend a 50-hour orientation program. This will be a professional orientation program, upgradation, and this will ensure upgradation. And mind you, hereafter, all the administrators of all these schools will be put under some kind of a supervision, a vigilance, and marks will be allotted to their performance in various sectors and so on. And so accountability will be built into school administration as well to all the administrators. See, the whole thing is that unless there is accountability at every level, whether at the classroom level for the teacher or whether it's for the principal of a school, unless accountability is there, the system will not function. And so the policy states very clearly, there is a whole section on checking the administrators, training administrators, incentivizing administrative performance, and so on and so forth. So, yes. See, when the new skill sets are coming into school education, this is very important from class 6 onwards. The nature of school education itself is going to change because at class 6 level, new skill sets will be introduced. Apart from vocationalization, not just vocationalization, but new skill sets like arts, like history, like many other subjects and so on. Now, when these new skill sets are introduced, it's possible that if we take 5 schools in one geographical area, it's possible that 3 schools are doing very well and 2 schools are not doing very well. Why are they not doing very well? The committee will inspect, and for example, if the school has some kind of, lack of quality teachers, the policy says that teachers will be supplemented in that school. Now, the second thing the policy says is, supposing that school has a very good arts teacher in those 5 school zones, if that is the strength of the school, there's a very good physics teacher, there's a very good physical education teacher in that particular school, whereas the other subjects are not really very good, but they have. If that is the case, then mind you, children from the other schools who opt for some of those subjects will be attending that school and getting instruction from that teacher. In other words, competence of the teachers will be made available to all the children in that geographical area. Or there is another person who is very good in carpentry in the town itself, let us say. That person will be brought to the school, one of those schools, wherever it is, and whatever children they apply for carpentry, and he will be given them instructions, and a curriculum will be drawn up for that, and that will be made available. The language of instruction, all the curriculum, the entire syllabus, everything, and there will be credits given to that particular course as well. So you see, at various levels, the policy thinks of enabling schools to perform well, enabling school administrators to come up with suggestions, come up with offers. And the more the school does new things, the more incentivized it will be. And so there are plenty of opportunities for school administrators, particularly at the lower level and so on. The last thing I want to say here in this question is legitimizing Anganwadis. Now, Anganwadis so far survived on their own thanks to somebody's generosity. And what happened in Anganwadi, who was there, whether it was run properly, food was given properly, teachers were qualified or not, there was little check on that. Now, since the schooling starts at age 3, when it starts at age 3, the Anganwadis become legitimized. And so even the work that the Anganwadis do will come under proper scrutiny.
Yes.
There's some noise. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much,
Okay.
Rajagopal. And Are there any last burning questions for him as we get to the end of our session here? I know everyone has been very quiet, and I think everyone has been processing all that you've been saying. So, any last questions before we say our thanks to him? Lot of thanks coming into you, sir. So
Oh,
people are
thanks.
saying, it was very insightful, and people are really appreciating, including me. I really appreciate the very detailed and informative, very measured way in which you have explained every single question with so many rich details. I think I must say, you really did so much justice to each question that was answered, and shared so much with us from your rich experience with the NEP. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajagopal. We really appreciate it. Yes, people are saying it was very informative and very well articulated. I completely agree with them, and our heartiest wishes to you on your part in with the NEP, and for bringing out such a much awaited change that we've all been looking forward to. And once again, thank you so much on behalf of Team Learning Matters for having joined us today on a Saturday afternoon, and for spending your time in answering these questions that so many teachers are struggling with about NEP.
My pleasure.
So much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
a lot,
Thanks.
Saraswati, and thanks a lot, Learning Matters. Thanks everybody for giving me this opportunity. And I must thank all the participants who took part in the session. And I must thank all those who asked questions and responded. I can see Preeta Anthony.
Yes.
Oh, she's so nice, so nice. Valli Narasimhan, double was. Oh, what a pleasure. Look at Sairi also. Fine, good, excellent. Deepak, everybody, thank you so much. Thanks for your participation, and thank you.
We're again very sorry that because of some technical glitch which we did not anticipate at all, that we couldn't see you. It would have been wonderful to see you, but in one way, listening to the way you enunciate and your articulation, I think has left most of us spellbound here. So I'm speaking on behalf of many of the attendees today. Thank you so much.
But still, you see, I had specially prepared myself to be visible to everybody.
Okay, we will definitely have you again another session, perhaps a longer session, Dr. Rajagopal, where maybe we can see if we can make it more like a workshop or something like that. So longer session where people can participate in smaller groups and possibly have more concrete takeaways from you. We'll see when we can do that, and we'll definitely ensure that your video is working then.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.